Alrighty, these will be the people news. Okay, not attorney, not giving legal advice. Educational purposes only. Okay, never look straight forward. Always look around you. Be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. You know, I am about lawyers, but sometimes you get good information from lawyers as well. All right, and I'm led to believe the way he speaks that he's a attorney. And we talked about how corrupt courts are, but here's an attorney kind of doing that legal speak of things that should be done, but yet you get different results in different areas, and yet they have the same process. And how can that be? That's because, well, really, we don't have a true judicial system. We got administrative, okay? And let's just hear what he has to say. What do you guys think? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I want to tack on a couple of little key points. Okay, constitutionally speaking, of the police powers, the only powers they have is immediate death or loss of limbs. Okay, go through Dallas going 140 mile an hour through rush hour. Well, that's putting everybody at risk. Okay, that is actually subject matter. Okay, that is the complainant. Even though there's not a victim involved, there is, in fact, that has been such a high risk that they can overstep certain formalities due to the danger and the nature of it. Okay, but if you're going through Van Horn to well, let's see, Pecos through Van Horn, and you're running 140 mile an hour, well, that would be okay because the traffic is not near as bad. You're not taking it too far of taking a chance of life or limbs, right? And I understand that I may get a little slack on that. However, the most important part in everything is not really officer safety as much it is your family safety, right? You don't want to be mixed in during a rush hour of 140 mile an hour, and anything can happen. I may judge the speed wrong because he's running 140 mile an hour, and I may switch lanes in front of that guy, and he crashes into me. It wasn't my fault. It was due to him going so fast, I misjudged his speed in my mirror. Everybody knows what it looks like in the mirrors. Okay, so just saying what that is, right? And the next step is, and this has been a little bit long, information. All right, nowhere in the Constitution or the law of the land, which, by the way, the law of the land is not the Constitution. The law of the land is the common law. That's what the law of the land means. Okay, it does not mean the Constitution, because that Constitution is not our law. That is the government's law, not to trespass upon us. Our law is common law, and the law of the land is that particular jurisdiction, which in fact needs a victim. Okay? And let me change that. In truth, it needs a victim, not in facts. Okay? We did a video on the difference between facts, truth, and lies. Okay? So, in truth, there has to be a victim. That's the beginning of due process for the victim and as well as you. But information, there may be a victim, but they file a complaint with the officer and then they disappear. Well, the Sixth Amendment says I'm allowed to face my accuser. So I go to court, where's my accuser? Okay? So it cannot be by information. It has to be by affidavit. And these processes must follow through to order to get due process and do just, right? And anything that's got a penal code, okay, it's penalize, penal code, penalize, right? That's a bill of attainder. That's ex post facto because they're putting a crime on you without you going through the due process. They take your car and all that without due process. They sell your car while you're waiting in jail. That's not due process. All right? I don't care if it's under the guise of, you know, commercial or not. Just because it's commercial don't mean there's not a form of due process involved in that same exact deal. There's a formality that needs to be standard. Okay, let's go.
Yo, it's JP. All right, I'm going to talk about jurisdiction, okay, and the importance of jurisdiction. So without further ado, let's just get into it, okay? You can have the same exact case, the same exact facts, the same exact law in federal courts, but those federal courts are in different parts of the country, and you're going to get a completely different outcome, okay? What that means is, one, it's a systemic problem, okay? Because if there is federal law, and that law actually means something, the words have meaning, it is a law, the law matters, it's a real thing, it's not a made-up, gobbledygook, fabricated thing, it's a real thing, then if you have the same facts, the same law, the same claim, and you file that case in the federal court for the Middle District of Florida, for instance, and you have the same facts, same thing, right? And you file that case in the District of New Jersey. If the law works correctly and is applied correctly and is applied in a fair, impartial, balanced, unbiased, even-handed fashion, then you should expect to get the same outcome, at least up until trial. Because at trial, you have different jury pools, okay? If it's a jury trial, the folks deciding the case are going to come from different jury pools. The Middle District, right, you have Tampa, Clearwater, Orlando. New Jersey, very different jury pool, okay? So that can explain your variation for the ultimate outcome at a jury trial. But short of that, if we're talking about summary judgment, you'll see tremendous variation in summary judgment outcomes where that variation should not exist. If the law is a real thing, people talk about law and order and the rule of law and the importance of law and the integrity of the legal system. If that is real, we should see the same outcome on the same case, whether that case is filed in the Middle District of Florida, the District of Oklahoma, the Northern District of Illinois, the District of New Jersey, the District of Maryland. We should see the same outcome at the summary judgment stage. The problem is we don't see that. We don't see that. Particularly in the employment discrimination space. So when it comes to race discrimination in particular, age discrimination, religious discrimination, disability discrimination, sexual harassment, hostile work environment, retaliation, when it comes to these types of cases, we are seeing too much of a divergence of outcomes between, take a guess, federal courts in certain parts of the Old South and federal courts in the rest of the country. Okay? And that is a problem. That is a problem because the law is the same. If we're talking about Title VII, Title VII. If we're talking about the original Civil Rights Act of 1866, 42 U.S.C. 1981, that is a federal law. It is the same exact law. And the rules, right? Summary judgment, for instance, that is Rule 56 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. You see what I'm doing here, right? You see what I'm doing? There was a civil war fought in this country, not just over slavery and economics and everything else, and to keep the Union together, but part of why there was a civil war and had to be a civil war was because you had the Confederacy refusing to abide federal law and respect the principles of federalism. And you saw that again in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Movement. You saw how, the federal government out of D.C. had to go into the South and force integration. And I maintain, one, I'm not just a lawyer, okay? I'm also a public figure, an intellectual, a writer, and on and on. But one of my theories or a premise that I maintain that explains some of this is we're looking at a continuation of that. There are certain parts of the American South where the law has not been applied consistently with how the rest of the country is applying it. And if we...
And I'm going to take it a stretch further, y'all. In most cases, there is no reason why we should even have to move to a federal court. If we have judges and attorneys acting in good faith and in honor, and do the right thing in the lower courts. You shouldn't have to go all the way up to federal courts and cause dilution there, right? Because federal is real fine and delineed, right? It's real skinny. It's a narrow road. The commerce thing is what's getting us in this bind. But if we have a due process in the state of Texas, that due process is supposed to be exactly the same in California. That due process is supposed to be exactly the same in New York. We all have a right to due process. And every state is supposed to have common law and they're supposed to follow the due process. Right? And so they actually are criminals by judges accepting information and not so much as the complainant of affidavit, so that way you can face your accuser, right? I'm going to take it another step further. We did a video that we, the people, are the state, right? In that context, in that intent, and in that definition is what the founding fathers told us, okay? Alleged founding fathers, okay? So, by extension, in your documents, you can actually go ahead and ask for the 11th Amendment qualified immunity due to you are the state. And you qualified for that immunity, y'all. So, see how crooked these judicial branches and these lawyers are with you, right? And due to our lack of education and reading and writing at law, of law, in law, right? We've been duped. And Then when they commit crimes, like Texas 39, you try to charge our government officials these crimes that they have done against you, and nobody will take it. Again, where's your due process? Right? Where's your remedy? Right? I've been harmed, lost, and damaged by an officer. Okay? He committed a crime. In Texas, you can do the other codes as well because it says all persons. It don't go Pacific, but there's a Pacific one for the government entity itself of 39. But they don't get charged for these crimes. They may get charged for a policy breaker, but very rarely do they actually get charged for a crime. So everybody goes out there, I want to sue, I want to sue. Well, if you're going to sue, don't sue for money. Sue for them to actually to do their jobs and actually enforce the law on that officer, or enforce that law on that judge, or enforce that law on your legislature. All right? Because if they don't do it and you've been a victim, then there are, what? A code. Look up the code. Aiding and abetting criminals. Just saying. These will be the People News. Till next time. Bye.